KB, or Pile Driver Wrestling Podcast. Hey, today we're going to get into the old school. I always say the old school paved the way for the new school. So we're going to go back old school. How old school? We're going to go back to the 1980s. That's right. When wrestling was at its prime, in my opinion. When wrestling was cool. When they made cartoons about wrestling. And we're going to get into that. But before we do, click, like, and subscribe to this channel. And turn on those notification bells. That way you'll never miss anything. But today we're going to be talking about an individual that you may not know. And the reason you may not know him is because wrestling, remember, wrestling, you had WWE, F, of course. You had NWA, of course. But really, the landscape of wrestling had a lot of promotions. So you had Mid-South. You had Georgia Championship Wrestling. You had all these different promoters around here, in different areas, throughout. So that's why you may or may not have heard this individual. Hopefully you have, especially if you're a wrestling fan. You'll probably know who I'm talking about. But we're going to talk about none other than Wildcat Wendell Cooley, the Wildcat. So he was definitely a great in-ring performer. He would actually come out to If Heaven Ain't a Lot Like Dixie by Hank Williams Jr. He had the long mullet, in the back and stuff, but he was a phenomenal wrestler, phenomenal entertainer. He knew how to put on a great show, and we'll kind of get into some of his signature moves. I actually watched the Wildcat Wendell Cooley, as I was young. I know I don't look that old, but I actually, as a kid, remember watching the Wildcat. And so some of his signature moves was his lariat. He had a nasty lariat, Oklahoma Stampede. He had the super kick. And I remember, man, his signature move, he would grab that rope and he would, start doing his stomp, almost like Shawn Michaels. He would, and then he would do his kick, of course, but, just phenomenal, things that he did. He was also a great tag team person. He actually formed the Heartbreaks with Frankie Lancaster. If if you're a wrestling fan, then you know who Frankie is. But he wrestled some great people like Tom Pritchett, Dirty White Boy, Tony Anthony. You had him wrestle Ric Flair, of course. Dirty Dutch Mantel. If you know anything about Dirty Dutch, you'll know him. But he was also, of several champions, and we're going to kind of get into his accomplishments. Before we do, though, I thought one interesting fact that I didn't know who trained Wildcat. And this is very interesting to me. And this is why it's always good to go and do our research and look at different things. This individual was trained by Robert Fuller. And if you know who Robert Fuller is, he was known as the Tennessee Stud. He had the Stud Stable. And I believe the Wildcat actually became part of his stable at one point. But that was just a really interesting fact, because I remember, Robert Fuller, you had Ron, his brother, but I remember Robert Fuller, being the Tennessee Stud, and I didn't know that he trained him. So that's a really interesting fact, there. But talking about his accomplishments, he's an AEW Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion. He's an NWA Alabama Heavyweight Champion. And I'll tell you this much. I actually went back and I watched a match between when he won this belt against Jerry Stubbs. Him and Jerry Stubbs, you can find it on YouTube, but he actually won that belt, and beat Jerry Stubbs. So again, that's why I tell you, go back and watch some of this wrestling, because it's really good, man. It just really makes you appreciate what you're watching today. He was a Mid-South Tag Team Champion, and he was also a USA tag champion as well, and a lot of other accomplishments. That's just a few of them, but I tell you, they even got a documentary out there about him on Amazon Prime. You can go watch it, on their Prime Video. But, Jerry King Lawler's on there. Tom Pritchard's talking about it. Coco Beware, if you know about the Coco, with the Birdman. And then, of course, Tony Anthony, Dirty White Boy, as well. But check out that documentary. It's really good, because they actually talk about on there. There was two sides. There was the Wildcat, and then there was just Wendell. And, so I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but, go watch that video. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Leave us some comments if you remember the Wildcat Wendell Cooley. And that's all I got for this edition of Old School Wrestling. We'll see you next week here on the PDR Podcast.